You've all seen it before. Main character's up against the villain of the story, and we're in this big climactic fight. The villain character is at their absolute most threatening. They're highly skilled. They're outsmarting the protagonist at every turn. It's one of the most important moments both for the characters and for the story, and they pull out the infamous final form. And the villain turns into something. And the thing that's always bothered me is that in a lot of cases, not always, but definitely pretty often, that something that they turn into is so much worse than the original. It could be because that form just doesn't fit the character. It could be because that form just doesn't make sense to use in a fight like this. It's not practical, it's a stupid idea. Or it could be that it's just ugly. Alright, obviously this video is going to have some spoilers in it, namely for these series on the screen right now, because, you know, it's a video about Final Form, so no shit. But to mitigate against that as best I can, I'll be dividing this video up by sections, so there'll be labels in the YouTube chapters for what series I'm talking about. So let's start with the example that pretty much inspired this whole video, and we're gonna jump right into the last few episodes of JJK's second season, right at the conclusion of the very long, very climactic Yuji versus Mahito fight. The fight that's meant to settle 2 entire seasons of conflict between these two. Now, Mahito is definitely an interesting character. He's one of the most expressive and emotive characters in the whole series, and they really make that obvious. He's always going like bah, or blah, blah, or blah, 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 all the time. He's goofy, he's crazy, he's stretchy, like bro stretches his body almost as much as fucking Luffy. But in this fight, we get his true form. The form that he himself states is his true unbridled soul. It's the thing that he's been searching for this whole time. And it looks like the fucking dogs from Lethal Company. It's like this rigid exoskeleton thing, and although it does make him stronger and more durable, it also does 2 things. Hide his face and restrict his movements. Like, you know how they say that the eyes are the window to the soul? Well, this is supposed to be his true soul, but my dude has no eyes. What the fuck? Mahito's face is supposed to be the ultimate form of expression and exaggeration, and this form completely throws that away. It's trying to look more threatening, but really it's just making this not Mahito anymore. Like, my goofy boy, he's gone. What'd they do to you? And the second thing it does is restrict his movements, which is the thing that's made Mahito so threatening this whole time. Like, look at the way he's been fighting before. Crazy, cartoonish, unpredictable, versus what he's doing now, which is just a buff dude with some spikes. Honestly, it's good that the mask ended up kind of half coming off towards the end of the fight, because if we'd gone all the way to the end without ever even seeing Mahito's face again, that would have been quite a slap to the face. Overall, this fight is still far from bad. It's well animated, it's well voiced, it serves as a good conclusion to this feud. I just wish that this form could have been more Mahito. Like, more wacky, silly, crazy. Take all the stuff that he already does and bump it up to 1,000,000. Give me 1,000 Mahito clones, all swarming Yuji, each of them morphed into some crazy form. Give me Mahito lopping his head off and then throwing it at Yuji, and it turns into a grenade and explodes and becomes like 10 other Mahitos. Like, just do some crazy shit. There's so much more you could have done here as a send-off to this character. We could have had the ultimate essence of Mahito in the final phase of this fight, but instead, we got this departure from the traits that made up his character to begin with. It's just a little disappointing. Okay, next. We all know this guy, right? Sasuke is really cool. Sakura, the beautiful. That's right, Naruto German opening. Sasuke is cool. Really cool. In fact, that's basically his character. He's the cool guy. So honestly, I don't even have too much to say about this final form. It's technically not even a final form, but basically, at the end of part 1 of Naruto, he becomes... He's just so fucking ugly, man. Oh, I can't take him seriously. He looks like Noivern. Let's compare this to the actual final fight of Naruto at the end of Shippuden, which is the same matchup. It's the same 2 people at the same place, fighting over basically the same thing. Now, Shippuden obviously has the advantage because it's the actual final fight of the series, but the forms Sasuke takes are also way more in line with the fight. Basically, it's Susanoo versus Curse Mark Sasuke, and one of them just looks way cooler and makes for a much better viewing experience, in my opinion at least. But speaking of this fight, the final forms here, I think, are used to perfection. Not because the forms themselves are great, but more because the way that they use them in the context of the fight helps drive the narrative towards a more emotional and impactful conclusion. It's all about the contrast, and I'll explain what I mean. Generally, I think the best boss fights in anime are the ones that end up close and personal. Like Naruto vs Sasuke and one other fight from another series that I'll mention soon both follow this pattern. The fight gets built up over time to massive proportions. Like we get these crazy final forms duking it out, going insane, but then they end up breaking things down and down and down until the true final fight happens with no forms at all. It ends up just being a simple fist fight between two individuals. It's just Naruto and Sasuke at the end. There's barely any chakra left. There's no more Biju balls or Susanoo or any of the fancy shit. And I'd say these are the kinds of fights that are really deserving to be called final fights. Breaking things down to the very basics, to the core of the characters themselves, is how you leave a real impact on the viewers. And the other example I was going to mention just now is, of course, Gurren Lagann. Specifically at the very end of the last movie where we have the spirals versus the anti-spirals. Just like Naruto, this fight gets built up to these massive proportions, in this case being literally multiple galaxies wide in terms of sheer scale. And we get another great example of a good final form. Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann works because, once again, in the narrative of this fight and of the whole series, this form represents all of the progress that our characters have made to get here and defy their fate. And just like with Naruto again, we get the contrast, because this form, along with the anti-spirals form, gets broken down and down and down and down until the true final fight is, once again, just a simple fist fight. It's just Simon left at the end. Just him and his simple drill that he started this journey with, and without the final form that we just saw, this, again, would not have left nearly as much of an impact. Okay, Bleach time. This is going to be a similar argument to the one I had for JJK because, of course, we all know this guy. What is Aizen known for? His cool, calm demeanor, his arrogance and superiority, his stoicism, his sexiness, and that's exactly the shit that made his most iconic moment, stopping Ichigo's theme, work so well. But his final form ends up being this. He's a fucking clown. Now, I get why he looks like this. He's transcending. He's turning into a monster beyond our comprehension, all that stuff. But my problem is more with the fact that I just wasn't really able to take him all that seriously after he started looking like this. Not even really because of anything he ever did or didn't do. This form just felt less threatening to me. In fact, every time he evolved past his base form, it just kept feeling a little bit less like Aizen and a little bit more like a generic villain character. I don't know if I'm alone in this opinion because I haven't really seen too much discussion around it, but yeah, the clothes make the man, you know? Even Aizen just being strapped to a chair after this felt so much more threatening and so much more like a return to form with this character. Chair Aizen felt so much more Aizen, and it gave us back this calm but cocky guy who made the Soul Society collectively shit their pants. I love Bleach, I love Aizen, but I do wish that they went another way with this design. You know, not fucking white Volcarona. Alright, here's another one I might get shot on for, but I'm gonna bring up the final fight, or I guess series of fights, of Attack on Titan. Oh boy. This huge scale, massive fight taking place during the rumbling between Eren as the founding Titan with all of these Titan Shifter clones that he's creating versus the rest of our main cast trying to stop him. I don't really have a big problem with the design of the founding Titan and the rumbling and all that, but I do generally have a problem when it comes to any fight that's basically just summoning an army of clones or minions or whatever. It really diminishes the impact of individual enemies when you're just not able to focus on any of them. And it's even worse when the fight is supposed to have like hundreds of these clone enemies, but we only really ever get to see a couple of them at a time while the rest are just waiting there in the background. It's just so much more compelling to me to have one enemy who's really strong, really fast, smart, whatever, compared to just a sea of featureless clones. And there's another issue with this that has to do with power scaling, because most of the time you can't really have your important characters just die against the narratively unimportant clone number 78. So even if they're supposed to be super strong, which is definitely the case here, they can't really do much actual meaningful damage. Compared to the earlier seasons of Attack on Titan, this fight here just didn't make the Titans feel all that threatening. Like, they are threatening, but it just didn't feel that way because the characters are supposed to be outnumbered like 1,000,000 to 1. But it doesn't really feel like it when you actually zoom into the fighting. This is supposed to be the fight where it feels like they have no chance. Like, everyone is filled with fear and despair, people actually die, but it kind of just turned into this cheap, generic minion scramble instead. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that most of this fight, with some exceptions like with Eren versus Armin right at the very end, felt more like PvE than PvP. Like, and I know that's not really the point. Attack on Titan isn't really a series that's focused on the shonen fighting, but I just feel like a more personal, intimate fight would have worked better from an emotional perspective. Like, compare this with Eren versus Annie or Eren versus Reiner. It's gritty, it's personal, and there's actually details that you can follow while they're fighting, like the fighting style that they're using, how they use their environment to their advantage, how they interact with their allies, that kind of thing. Like, imagine if after all the fighting at the end of the series, instead of Eren just being like a useless floating head, if he and Armin actually ended up using up all their energy and leaving their Titan forms, and then they end up just fighting, one-on-one. Not a Titan fight, a human one. It'd be personal, it'd be emotional. The characters would finally have the chance to actually interact with each other properly, not after the fact in a telepathic voicemail. It would even fit the core narrative thematically, because in the end, all of the conflict in the series is ultimately driven by humanity. So ending it with a human fight rather than a Titan fight would make sense too. Okay, now obviously I can't really complete a video about final forms without at least talking about some final forms in video games. And the first one that comes to mind is a bunch of the different forms that Ganon takes in various Zelda games. Twilight Princess is a fantastic game, but the 4-phase final boss fight against Ganon is just especially amazing. It actually has a bunch of these final form tropes that I've been whining about this whole time. It starts with Puppet Zelda, and then goes into Dark Beast Ganon, and then fighting Ganon on horseback in Hyrule Field, and then concludes with this one-on-one sword fight duel with Ganondorf. And when we think about it in terms of scale, the 4 phases kind of go like this. We start small, and then we go to big monster, and then we go even higher as the area increases even more when they get on the horses. But then for the final fight, we shrink all the way down to this constrained small area. We simplify everything too, so no fancy light arrow shit, no ping pong mechanics, no glowing obvious weak spot to aim for, just a straight up duel. And it's so fucking cool. Like, it just felt so cool doing this fight, because the game used the final form card in the second phase with the big generic evil monster trope, but they got rid of it at the end to turn Ganon into his humanoid form, making for a fight that was just so much more memorable, so much more personal, and so much more intimate. But unfortunately, they kind of did the opposite with Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild. Let me bring up the chart again, because without counting the Blight Ganon forms, we've only got 2 forms here. We've got Big Evil Monster, and even bigger evil monster. Now, I did find that first phase to be a pretty interesting, fun fight, like it was cool, but that last phase, this last phase, man, to me it was basically just a better graphics version of the horseback fight in Twilight Princess, except if the game had just ended there and not done the last phase. Big evil monster fights have this problem where, because the enemy is so massive, it doesn't really give us much creativity in terms of fighting options. It's just a big blob that you shoot at. Like, it can't really dodge you all that well or counter your attacks that much. I think my goat Roy Mustang said it best.
Can't believe you'll give me a bigger target. Did you think that size would increase your chance of winning? You idiot.
In fact, in the Calamity Ganon fight, you quite literally just circle around him and shoot at the giant glowing targets Zelda gives you. It's not exactly the pinnacle of exciting gameplay that tests all your skills to end off this otherwise legendary game. Now, of course, there's other games to talk about too, so my next one is going to be... wait, hang on, I just realized I'm a fraud. I don't play that many games. One sec, give me a sec.
No. Wait. I'm a gamer! Okay, wait. If we're talking cool Zelda fights, then how come we haven't talked about Tears of the Kingdom? You engage in a 1v1 with Ganondorf, and it puts your skills to the test. Pretty much everything you have learned in this game, you need to use against him. Then, once he goes down, he transforms into a creepier, much more menacing form that causes his health bar to damn near fly off the screen. What a sick fight! You are literally going at it with one of the creepiest enemies in this entire game. It is so awesome. Finally, it's time for his final phase, and since Tears of the Kingdom has improved on pretty much everything Breath of the Wild did, I expect the final boss to be no different. It's another fucking brainless cinematic fight where Ganondorf loses all of his humanity and you just gotta wait for Zelda to point at the spots for you to hit. But I guess it's prettier now. Never mind Zelda games, let's talk the Joker. baby. We all know who the Joker is, right? We've seen Batman before. So naturally, the Joker is the final boss of Batman Arkham Asylum. Shocker, I know. But do you know what makes Mr. We Live in a Society so great in the first place? His unhinged personality and ridiculous tactics for how he does things. Why would you take someone as tightly written as the Joker and have him inject himself with a fucking serum that turns him into a great big Incredible Hulk clone? So now the Joker, who's normally known for fighting tactically since he's not known for strength, is just, "Grr, me big, angry, rah, kill Batman!" And you know what? It's not even a fun boss to fight either. Like, for a game that's this fun, I hate that the boss fight sucks this bad. What about anime games? Let's take JoJo's Bizarre Adventures and turn it into a mediocre arena fighter. What do you get? Dio, except he basically goes Super Saiyan. Look at this thing. What is this? I love Dio, but I'm not so sure I needed an original story where he gets a stronger stand that lets him like transform into this stronger, more psychotic form. It's really stupid and really fucking redundant, dude. Why do so many games assume that the final fight should be a boss that just completely throws away their character to be some stupid final form? I don't want to sit here and fight random brainless monsters, man. I want to care. Take Persona 5 Royal, for example. This game sequences its final boss in reverse from other games. You start out fighting what's essentially God, and then as the metaverse is crumbling into the fight, it eventually just comes down to you and Professor Maruki, and you guys lose your personas and just start fighting each other. That is what I love. It is such an awesome cinematic fight. You know what? Here's a list of final forms in games that I think are pretty great. Perfect Chaos from Sonic Adventure. I really like that he's built up the entire game and is constantly changing forms, and the final form does not disappoint. Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. This is how an RPG's final boss that is a god should go down. The Shadow Queen from Thousand Year Door actually fits the vibe of a 1,000-year-old demon hidden in the underground. Sadler from Resident Evil 4 is a perfect fit in a series where you are just fighting abomination after abomination, so when he transforms into his final form, you're just like, the fuck is that? Every Yakuza game's final boss has a final form, which involves them ripping their shirt off, and don't get me wrong, the game treats it as a new form. They are stronger when they take their shirt off. That's pretty badass. Flowey from Undertale. I am so sorry for hurting anyone in this game. Please forgive me. I am so sorry. I will literally never hurt anyone ever again. And of course, we cannot forget the absolute greatest final form of all time, Cat Bowser. It's Cat Bowser.
What the who the fuck was that? Anyway, now there's obviously like 7 trillion other examples out there, including, yes, Dragon Ball, which I left out. Feel free to yell at me about that. But I think you get the point with the examples that I've already brought up. In the end, this stuff is super subjective. Like, this is probably the most opinion-driven video I've ever made, and I get the feeling that a lot of people are not going to be super happy with me dissing the king, among other things I've said. But hey, all in good fun. Okay, that's it. See ya. Idiot.